Good afternoon, Mr. Cole. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ross. How are you? Hope everything's all right down there, down the bay, but
It is, mate. It's a bit overcast today, but apparently there's some more warm weather on the way. So
yes, apparently Caroline said that we're going to have a weekend of the warm weather, so bring it on, I say.
yeah, so I think this will be well, judging by what's happening in Wales, I think this will be our lockdown special.
I think so. I think things will change a bit more now. And if people don't use their heads, well, what can you do? They can't do no more than they're doing, and it's up to us now.
Yeah. It's all about what we can do now.
I think so.
Right, so we've got a few things. The podcast is called Books and Crooks. So I thought we'd talk a bit about the books. I know you've got some exciting news, and we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
I also have some news about an upcoming release.
Well done.
We'll do some poetry, and then maybe I know you've written some stuff about some sports people, and maybe that'd be great to talk about some outside things, and remember things like sport, which seems so long ago now.
Well, it does. As you know, it's affected the sport, especially live sport. With the crowd. I've just been watching the cricket. Australia playing New Zealand. Australia playing England. And 50 overs normally be packed there, but there's nobody there. So, the autumn internationals are coming up. What's going to happen there? And people love the sport. They love going out on a Saturday afternoon or whatever. But that's gone by the board at the minute, and I don't know when
it is. National Stadium is a hospital at the moment, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
Difficult, but yeah, I thought we do a few things, but what I want to do first of all is one of your poems that I'm a massive fan of is the Bowman poem. So
the Bowman of Mons, which is a bit of a spiritual poem more than anything. As you know, in the First World War, with the heat of battle, it played with the minds of these young soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I'd write a poem, basically as a soldier who was caught up in this, and actually ends up in like a psychiatric ward, and obviously the war is over for him. And I titled it "The Bowman of Mons," and this is it.
Okay.
It was the day we'd all been waiting for, bellies churning, our first taste of war. To fight with comrades so proud and bold, from that day on, I had lost my soul. A battle so bloody, no man's land slaughter, that stench of death now with me forever. Our initial advance, victory we thought, short-lived it was, as the battle changed course. Shells bursting around us, bodies piled high, my first taste of battle, I was destined to die. My head then exploded, shrapnel my downfall, a silence so eerie, that's all I recalled. How are you, soldier? Don't speak, just rest. Your life has been saved, to this I attest. Blighty is calling, you've done your bit. Your mind now is broken, soldiering unfit. Sir, what of the archers? I saw them appear, brandishing longbows, showing no fear. We were on the retreat, outflanked on both sides. On my belly I prayed, Lord, please keep us alive. Bowman, you say, son, it's all in your mind. You probably dreamt it. That's what you'll find. No, sir, I saw them, spread across no man's land. Arrows blotted out the sun. You do understand. Your mind has been damaged. Now this is the end. No more front for you. Of that you can depend. Sir, you don't understand. They saved all our lives. If they hadn't appeared, we wouldn't have survived. You've suffered a trauma. Just empty your mind. Initially, we thought you were permanently blind. Once you get home, the scars, they will heal. But the battle you fought, by God, that was real. So there's a memo then from a physician who treated Private Cole. Private Cole is delusional. Of that, there's no doubt. He's a brain-damaged warrior, along with so many others. It is recommended that he be returned home to England at the earliest convenience to undergo a full and thorough psychiatric assessment. He will never be fit for active duty again. So I wrote that one. It's obviously, it's all in the mind. He was injured by shrapnel, and obviously God knows what goes through their mind when they're injured. Perhaps they think they're dead or whatever, I don't know. But so I wrote that for that. A little bit of a difference, but it's a First World War nightmare.
I mean, it's a lovely with your poetry especially, and that's a good example. I mean, I remember very fondly the one about your dad in the bath after the the pits and that. But a lot of your poetry, I mean, I know authentic is used a lot to describe your poetry, but I think sometimes that takes away from, you write very impactful journey poetry as well. So the fact that, like, that to me is a journey poem. There's such a sense of place and time to it that it raises it above a factual description of something. It's almost like a virtual reality piece, isn't it? It's like you see it, you can feel it. The addition of the physician's notes at the end, it creates a piece of art. So I mean, that's why I love that so much.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ross. What I tried to do in some of the poems, obviously, as you say, they're authentic. So I suppose to younger people, they're historical because they tell a story of something that's happened. But what I do now and again in poems, especially the war poems, I try to put myself in the place of the soldier. I just did in Shoreham, they just read one of them out to it's for the shot at dawn, for the first person who was shot at dawn. He's branded a coward. Obviously, he's been pardoned now, and I wrote the poem for him. But I try to put myself in his place, being tethered. What was going through his mind? Was he frightened? That type of thing, about his family, what he thought about his family, this type of thing. So I try to do that now and again to sort of put myself in, and I'm going back over 100 years, obviously. So God knows what it was like. We'll never ever know, will we? And as you know, in the First World War, they were having amputations left, right, and centre. They were blinded, and they were like cattle, basically. So it must have been dreadful, and these physicians doing their best in atrocious conditions. But it's one of my favourites actually in the book, obviously. But that's what I try to do sometimes. It's authentic poetry. It's historical. It's like anything else. You know what I mean?
But that piece especially, it takes me to, I mean, one of my favorite movies, if not, it's up there in the top 5 of my favorite movies, is Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner. And I just remember the beginning of that film where he's injured and you see him biting to put his boot back on, and he does that suicide run, and what they captured in like 5 minutes there was such a very real and raw depiction of what these injured guys would go through, because he didn't want to lose his leg, and so I mean, so when you capture things like that are quite impactful and very raw at times, I think there's an ability to put so much caring and meaning through something that is at times a very cold thing, because those physicians, especially in the movie, would have been, well, he's shot, cut his leg off to stop it getting gangrene.
Yeah,
we haven't got time to look after him.
It's like the American Civil War. That's the way it was in the American Civil War. They'd bring him into the tent, and there'd be bodies piled around everywhere. You know what I mean? And he just saw the leg off or saw the arm off, and then you'd see him with a crutch with a patch on his eye, that type of thing. You know what I mean? And the First World War was the same. All wars are the same. You know, don't get me wrong. But the First World War, because it was the First World War, you know, the impact on war it was atrocious. It was there was no war like it. You know what I mean? Today now they could obliterate us with one bomb, couldn't they? You know, it's the end of that, end of humanity. And this is why today, when all these problems are going on about this, that, and the other, I think we tend to forget what happened 100 years ago for our freedom. You know, that type of thing. This is why we are free. You know what I mean? So we mustn't forget them. And I love my World War. I haven't done one for a while because I've been busy with other things, obviously. But that is one of my favourites. And I got a couple there which are sort of the same type of thing, you know. I often wonder about, especially these young lads who went to war, like they lied about their age, they're 14, 15 years of age. You know, the first battle they went to, perhaps they must have thought, what's going on here? You know what I mean? I was playing Cowboys and Indians a couple of years ago, and now I'm shrapnel and mustard gas and all that chucked at me. And I think we've got to teach our youngsters this, and I think by writing that type of poetry, I think you can suck them in. You can, you know, you just explain to them, and I think they'll understand it once you read it, and then the questions start coming to you. You know, I think they'll enjoy poetry more. You know, if that's poetry, I'd like to write it. You know,
yeah, I mean, it is. There should be nothing short of appreciation and admiration and respect for what those men did, and we should be eternally grateful for every sliver of life that we have now, because somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody's daughter died and gave their life, sometimes frivolously, you know, sometimes needlessly, you know, to make sure that we can all have this life we have now.
I think so. Yeah, we mustn't. People say today, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking about war." This, but that's the reason why we're here today.
And the most important reason to remember a war is, of course, to try not have another one.
Oh,
you know, that's what I think. That's what I think.
You know what I mean? God help us if we do have another. Well, we won't know much about it. Whoever drops the bomb will obliterate half the world. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And God help us if it comes to that. We won't know a lot about it anyway. No. But anyway, are you going to give us one now? What have you got for us?
Yeah. So I've got this is Beacons.
Yeah, we've sent that out. That's been shared out. That is.
Yeah. So that's only a couple of weeks away now.
Yeah.
And, I've had some from people that have read I've got a couple of advanced copies here. I'll make sure I send you one.
Lovely.
I've had some nice feedback on it, you know, because the thought processes behind it are quite interesting, especially around struggle and life and free will and all the other stuff I deal with in here. One of my favorite pieces in it at the moment is called The Memory Window.
Lovely.
And it's a natural extension of, do you remember the piece I did, The Barrow, about my father in the garden?
Yeah.
It's kind of an extension of that. And the idea in my head is that there's a window in my parents' house. And that window, even when I pass it now, it still feels like a time portal that I can see events from 20, 30 years ago playing out there, because they've been in that house a long time. So I wanted to kind of write it down, and this will kind of lead us into sports and stuff as well. But it's very much an adult with a child's eye, kind of remembering and seeing things through a portal into the past. So so this is called The Memory Window.
Lovely.
The memory window is at my parents' house, set at Landing's End. I've spent hours looking through it, breathing clouds on the seeing glass and tracing consciousness. There are bike tracks on the raining streets, rooting down in bearing, tennis courts and castle walls, sports fields shaped from civvies and old romantic pathways. The memory window shapes them in nostalgia with a condensation frame. The gutter's current bursts a drain pit, where at times we once saved hedgehogs from passing cars, cupped them in Dad's garden gloves to bring them home, housed them in cardboard and tissue, sharing out the cat's food to help the stranded, beautiful mace balls. Each following day at sunup, we'd race outside to see them, lift the top from the papery lifeboat, hope they'd stayed there, knowing they had not. So
yeah, it's very reminiscent of when I was growing up, like you said, with my father having the bath on the back bailey, this type, the chucking the coal in, this type of thing, and that's your view through your window, like you said, your memory window. It's the memories, and as you're reading it, I shut my eyes and I can see it as well. It gives that picture of what you were saying. And again, I think that's another good thing about poetry, especially if young people listen to it, and it makes them think of perhaps their memories in the future as well.
Mm-hmm.
You mean, as you know, today we grew up in an era where there was no iPads, there was no mobile phones, there was nothing at all. You had to make your own pleasure, like you say about the bicycle tracks, this tip on the wet road. You can shut your eyes and envisage in the valleys all these kids on bikes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see many kids on bikes up and down the street here, you know what I mean, for donkey's years. So yeah, it's emotional. It's emotional to you because obviously it's about your background and your childhood, and yeah, I enjoyed that. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I would like to talk. I've just heard a police siren outside.
Oh,
so
don't mention the police.
No, we should. We should. God bless the boys in blue. I love them.
Yeah.
But I think let's have a couple of minutes and let's talk about Terry, Mr. Terry Maguire.
Yeah, Terry Maguire.
What is the exciting thing that's happening with Mr. Maguire?
Well, we've created a monster with Terry, and back in 2016 when I wrote the first book on ethical conduct and Nigel helped me put it together, obviously. Mm-hmm. I was never going to write another book, but Nigel persuaded me to write with him, and we developed this series. Mm-hmm. We've completed 10 books. We got 2 in the pipeline, so it's a series of 12 books at the minute. But last year we were approached by a lady by the name of Karen Struwell-White, who's a producer, a publisher. She's got her own production company. Mm-hmm. In relation to having the books, to make them into audiobooks. Okay. So we met her, and obviously we had a good chat with her down in Swansea, but we didn't sign at all. Our viewpoint was like, if we signed all the books over and the first one failed, well, obviously there's nothing to do with the rest. Mm-hmm. And that was basically it. That was October. She got in touch with me about a month ago now in relation to unethical conduct. Mm-hmm. She wanted the book to turn it into an audio dramatization. Mm-hmm. Which is basically an audio book, but with actors playing the characters. So like Ross Lane would play Terry Maguire, that type of thing, but they're all professional actors. So me and Nigel met her. The scriptwriter was there, Davindra, and we had a good chat down in Swansea. And we signed the contract. We made a few amendments to it, obviously, to suit ourselves, which were agreed with. Mm-hmm. And then the way forward for unethical conduct, which is the first book, is that the script is being written as we speak, and the casting for it will be in the new year. So hopefully by the spring, the unethical conduct as the first book will be out as an audio dramatization. It's just the one book at the minute. So obviously, if that goes, belly up, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But obviously, if it does go well, and there is interest from a TV producer or whatever, where we look at that if and when it crops up, you know what I mean. That's in the future. But at the minute, the process has begun for it to be turned into this dramatization. It's not an audio book; it's an audio dramatization. So we'll be involved in everything from the casting right through to the the characters. The characters are not going to be changed. They will be as in the book. And we'll just see how it goes. So it's exciting times in relation to that. But we're still writing all the time. You know what I mean? I would think by the new year we'll have 12 completed books.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's exciting time. I know Nigel's very excited about it, as I am as well. But again, I think you've got to take things with a little bit of a pinch of salt, as you know, in the publishing game and the TV game. It's all sort of being in the right place at the right time. And if you don't put yourself in that place, you're like an hamster on a wheel. You're just going round and round. So we've taken the chance, and we'll see how it goes. So
there's a website that people can go to as well.
Oh yes, there's the Terry Maguire website, which, in fact, in fairness to Karen, she set it up before we actually signed for her. I think I got it. I better. It's the usual thing. http:/Terry Maguire .Wales basically. Because all the plots are in South Wales, and Karen thought that Wales had to be sort of in the website. So she set the website up. So there's a few things on it, obviously. The author, the biographies. There's a trailer on there, and obviously Karen will update that as the process of the audio dramatization goes on. We'll have the actors on there probably. Part of the script on there probably, that type of thing. So it's going well, hopefully.
So let me put you on the spot then, because I know there's like hundreds of thousands of people in Hollywood right now who are not working because of the beer bug.
Yeah.
So if you could cast any actor, any actor at any time,
yeah,
as Terry Maguire,
because it's a Welsh crime thriller. And I think the last proper one was Hinterland, basically, where you had actual police involvement in it.
Yeah.
If I was casting anybody as I would be Mark Lewis-Jones, the Welsh actor.
Yeah.
I think, and what I think he's got the voice, because we don't particularly want this Welsh lilt in him. If you understand me, he's got to come over as a bit like I've come over now, right? Because people who've read the book say, "Oh, it's you." Like, Terry Maguire is you. Well, when I wrote it, that never came into play. That didn't.
Yeah.
But they say that I can hear him talking, this type of thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Mark Lewis-Jones for if it was made into a Welsh TV drama. I think he's a strong bloke, he's empathetic, he's got the lot going for him. As for Hollywood, well, it could be anybody, couldn't it? You know what I mean? You
Reeves.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You took it, they've done it with Jack Reacher, Jack Reacher is, in the books, he's like 6'4". He played by a 5'7" actor.
I think Tom is 6'3". I think he's just under.
He's just under, is he?
Just under, yeah. He's a little bit shorter. Danny DeVito is a little bit taller.
That's right.
Tom is there.
So that's the way Hollywood goes. And as you know, when you sign these Hollywood things, Terry Maguire to you then is totally different to one on the screen. Like, as long as he's making millions of pounds at the box office, they don't care.
Yeah.
But
well,
I think
they did that with James Bond, didn't they? Bond. Until until Timothy Dalton played James Bond, it was nothing like the character in the book.
No, of course it wasn't. You know, I mean, and it's a Welsh detective.
Mm.
All the characters are in basically Welsh because that's the way it is. You got the pathologist, this type of thing, and you got the CSIs. You know, you got the women detectives. You know, I got an alcoholic detective inspector in it, who she's a recovering alcoholic. So you got to chuck them in because I've worked with these people anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I've worked with some real, you know, I mean, their private life. Like, you know, if you could write a book on it on your own, but that's by the by. But all good detectives, you know what I mean? They are their sort of foibles, like everybody has. And we've tried to put that in the books as well. You know, all these detectives are not whiter than white. You understand me? There's a lot of police corruption in it, you know, with that type of thing. And I think people want to see that as well.
Yeah.
You know, people don't want these sort of goody two shoes policemen. You've got to show the foibles and the weaknesses as well.
I think, especially for the purposes of drama, I mean, there's nothing less interesting than perfection. You know, so I think we expect our characters to be flawed, and I think, you know, when you look back through the you know, the superhero thing, when they were making Batman in 1989, I think, with Michael Keaton, and everyone was like, this isn't going to work, it's too dark, because we were used to the camp 60s, and you know, and it was the appreciation of, well, actually, no, this is a dark character, you know, and he's not a perfect character, and I think that is much more attractive now to viewers and listeners and readers. That's really good news. It's really
and
good.
I think, like, you write your poetry about Scotland and the glens and stuff. The books that we write are all local, so all the locations are local. So, like, Cardiff Bay is in there, Porthcawl is in there, Pontycummer, Swansea, Port Talbot, the Steelworks. You know, all these places are there. So, like, if people buy them, they get, oh, the Dirty Duck in Porthcawl, used to have a pint in there. You know, 25 years ago, it's not there anymore. It's been flattened. So, you know, we tried to put that. Terry Maguire himself. His character is, this man is 150% detective. This man lives and breathes the job, right? To the detriment of his family. You know, Molly, who stuck by him, she knows his foibles, she knows his mind, she knows the way he works. His two kids are grown up, they live in abroad, etc., etc. And, like, you know, he's there one day, 5 o'clock. I'll ring Molly, I'm coming home for tea. What's for tea? Terry, I'm not doing your tea till you get through the door. And then he's ringing her half hour later. I can't make it, love. There's a body on the railway line in Pencode, and I got to get out there. So next time she sees Terry, like, is like at breakfast in the morning. But he likes a pint, like all detectives do. He's not a womanizer. He's a lot of women fancy him. He's not a sexist. He's not a racist. He's nothing at all like that. This man is 100%. 150%, which is off the norm of a lot of TV detectives. They've all got hang-ups, either psychologically or drink-wise or this-wise. Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But he's got an edge to him. You know, he can be nasty when he wants to be, right? He can be.
He's very driven. It's an interesting character because he's very driven to resolution.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes with him, I've read the first two and I really enjoyed them. And sometimes with him, it was kind of hard to separate, but I think that's what's intriguing about it, is actually what was more meaningful to him. Was he enjoying the puzzle so much that he didn't necessarily want it to end? Or is the resolution everything that it's about? So I found at different times, you know, you said he is 150% police, right? He probably bleed blue. But sometimes you do get that sense with him that the chaos that surrounds him, the puzzle, the crime, there was such a fascination and a spotlight on that aspect of his being that sometimes the other stuff wasn't important, the home life, and I'm not saying he's a bad man and neglecting his wife.
No.
the puzzle was so important. And so I think he's an interesting character from that sense, because I can kind of imagine him in a situation where there's nothing for him to do and nothing for him to solve. I can imagine him being quite bored.
Yeah, well, as he's gone through, he starts off as a DI, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He's now a detective superintendent. So what you've got to do in the books, you've got to pull him back a little bit now from that involvement in, doing the business. He's more or less now, he's there, but he delegates more. Do you understand me?
Mm-hmm.
He's more of a delegate, but he's still there. He is still the main man, right? When Terry comes into the room, like, it's, how are you, boss? Yes, boss. And he'll say to his DCI, which he's done in the book I'm writing, Bryn, you were dealing with this one now. That's down to you. You the SIO on that. But I'm here if you want me. Bryn will not be offended if Terry interferes. And when I say interfere, he'll be in a briefing, and Bryn will give the briefing, and Terry will chirp in, what about this, what about that? But he's always, and there's other things going on as well behind the actual main incident.
Because it's almost it's almost, like the musician becoming the conductor.
Yes, exactly.
Or the tradesman becoming the manager,
Or the actor becoming the producer.
Yeah.
You mean that type of thing. And I couldn't have kept him as a DA for 12 books. You know what I mean? So and he's got this detective agency now, which he's half partner in, and obviously he'll retire, and then he'll be going to this detective agency, and all you're basically doing is transferring the police thing into civilian life, and he's working with Raven now, who's a raving lunatic, SPS, ex-SPS, who don't give a monkeys about anybody, and he's totally different to Terry. They're two different characters, but they like work together. And they'll work more when you retire. They'll be more together, and they'll probably get on each other's nerves. And that's the way you've got to bring it over. You know what I mean? It's
that sounds great.
He's a fabulous character. I don't know where he came from. When Nigel told me to create the character, I was sitting here like I said, Terry Maguire. And I just started writing it. And then Nigel then sort of put it all together, put a plot in the middle. And an ethical, and it's really a short book. You'd have read it in like 8 hours a day. You'd read it, but it was one of those books where you got to keep turning a page. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And there's a lot of black humor in it, which is police humor, which just gets you through the job. Otherwise you go off your rocker, like go shut it out, like. But you know what I mean.
Well, and people should read it if they're watching this and you haven't read it. Go onto Amazon and get yourself an Unethical Conduct.
The first one, you've got to read the first one first, because that'll, as they say on Gone Fishing, that'll look you.
That's right. Get your first taste. Get your first taste on Amazon.
Hopefully they'll all be out by Christmas now. The first 9.
Well, I think you've told us a lot there. You probably should have said spoilers a few times.
No, spoilers. No. I should have slipped a few spoilers in. Yeah, but no, it's anybody who reads them. And as you know, when we self-published them first, we made £2,000, which we gave to charity off the books off Amazon, which is a phenomenal amount of books, as you know. Yeah. We gave it to charity, and I know we've got the publisher. Well, the next step for us is obviously the audio. I think it's got to go on. There's an audio book I've been made of it. Jake R.E. reads it, but that's an audio book. I think when professional actors and a scriptwriter get at it, it's
completely different lease of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be totally different, and I think if they get the right actors, I think it'll just suck people in. I do.
No, I think it's. I can't wait to hear it, and obviously being your friend, I should hear some rushed drafts and.
So and it'll be on the website anyway. As it progresses, it'll go on the web. Each stage will go on the website, and I'll put it on the Terry Maguire page as well on Facebook, because there is a Terry Maguire page on the Facebook.
Yeah, so there you go, everyone. Terry Maguire coming in your ears really, really soon. Right.
Yeah, I won't hold my breath.
Right, guess a poem, man, but.
Right.
Guess a poem.
I go on to the sport, as you know, I love my sport, and when I did the 50 Famous, obviously I asked my Facebook group in relation to different sportsmen, and loads of Welshmen cropped up. But one of the top ones was probably the most gifted outside half we ever bred in Wales, and that's Barry John.
Not Dan Bigger.
Oh no.
No.
This man, I don't know if you've watched the clips of him playing. He was something else. He retired when he was 27. Barry did, and I wrote the poem, and Tommy Page, a friend of mine who actually knows him, said, "Look, can I give the poem to Barry?" I said, "Yeah, do it like." And then he rang me up out of the blue, Tommy Gimmingham, and he said, "I'm very humble that somebody's written a poem about me. It's the first time it's ever been done." I said, "Well, I said, yeah." I said, "What I'll do, like I'll have it on print, and I'll have it fun." I met him down in Cardiff in the old arcade, and I had a couple of hours there with him. Absolutely fabulous man. Could have talked to him all day, anything basically. Lovely man, and he was over the moon that I'd written a poem about him. Brilliant. I said, well, I didn't pick you, Barry. No, you would have been up there. He'd have been up there. Anyway, I called it The King. And then I wrote one called The Prince of Wales. And when I spoke to the bloke I wrote it about, I said, I couldn't call you The King because I've already written about him. And he went against to me. Don't tell me, Barry John. And I was Gareth Edwards. I said, you're the Prince, Gareth, because Barry's the king. Anyway, the king. An abounded talent with natural flair. Present day tens you cannot compare. A gift from the gods, critics would write. To watch him perform, an incredible sight. In an era long gone, his kingdom he ruled. With death, poison, guile, defences he fooled. A drop of the shoulder, wing forwards deceived. A scalpel through flesh to see and believe. With ball in hand, so much time and space, like a Welsh Napoleon, he dictated the pace. His kicking game, it was second to none. A mind so at ease, as if playing for fun. With Gareth in tandem, he caused so much pain, opponents agape as he swivelled and feigned. He'd ghost past defenders, mercurial in flight, then under the sticks, like a thief in the night. This Straddy legend, the greatest they say, made rugby so simple in an off-the-cuff way. Coaches today should watch the old tapes, a Welsh king in full flow, such breathtaking breaks. Worldwide renowned outside half, silky skills, sharp rugby brain to match. Together with Gareth Edwards, they were a formidable pairing and broke the hearts of many international rugby players. Sadly, Barry retired from the game at a young age, many say too soon. And there's no doubt about it that he did, for certain reasons, retire. He was 27. He had another. It was so easy, natural ability, and most of the sportsmen I've written about are exactly the same. George Best. Perhaps I'll read George Best afternoon. But again, with poetry, with young people, you can educate them with it. With sport as well. They say, who's Barry John? Well, go on YouTube and look at the clips of Barry John, and you'll be amazed. You talk about Dan Bigger and other, they wouldn't lace his boots.
No.
They wouldn't lace his boots. Unbelievable.
No, he was. I mean, a lot of those players in the 70s were so special.
And I spoke to him. I said, "Who's one of the best he's played with the greats? Who's one of the up there?" Oh, he said, "Welsh bloke." He said. I said, "Yeah." Oh, it's got to be what's his name behind every time. JPR Williams. He said, phew. You talk about Gravel and people said this bloke was like iron. He said he'd run through a wall for you. And, it's nice to have an opinion,
Yeah. It's I mean, they were, like I said, they were, incredible readers of the game. Incredibly skilled and gifted, obviously, but also I think in a time probably before coaching really got to where it is now. So we weren't coaching the skills out of them and
You got it.
follow these patterns, and it's almost the same way that the All Blacks still play, don't they?
Yeah,
The All Blacks don't think they've got X number of forwards and X number of backs. It's like, well, if you got the ball, you score a try.
you got it.
And that changes it a lot, I think. And it's quite a, I remember seeing some of I remember seeing Reece Patchell playing sevens when he was very young in the Arms Park. And when you saw him play, you went, oh yeah, this boy's gonna go somewhere. He's gonna be good because he had natural flair, natural skill, and you could see that. And they tend to stand out. And I think the Welsh team, especially the modern Welsh team, they seem to be going back to that sort of way, that mode of playing where it's exciting and running, and it's not about forwards crunch, take the ball, forwards crunch, which is is incredibly effective.
Yeah.
But it's not what you want to see, is it? You want to see people run with the ball.
And you've got to have, especially in rugby, your 9 and 10 are very important, obviously. But if you've got a 10 and and a centre next to him who can change the game like that, not get to, this is what I've got to do. This I'm going to do what I want to do. And if it changes the game, it changes. Like you say, the today's Welsh team, they are playing a little bit like that. Yeah, you're going to get caught out now and again, but you know what I mean. We must never coach natural. You know what I mean. I can name them. I can reel them off. They never touched them. Best they never touched. Gascoigne they never touched. These blokes were natural ball players. Barry John they never touched. Gareth Edwards. These blokes, you didn't have to coach anything with them.
No.
It was as if they were born with it. And I think what they've done today, the last 10, 20 years, they've seen these young, you mentioned Patchell coming up, and then they get him and then they coach him into a system which perhaps he doesn't like. But he ain't going to say I don't like it because he won't play again. And that's your problem, you know what I mean?
We saw it with England in the last Six Nations, where they were playing with 2 number 10s in effect.
Yeah.
So, so he said, everyone knows the importance of that position.
Oh, yeah.
In that game. And
controls the game.
And yeah, Barry was the king, right? He was.
Yeah, the king, and Barry and Gareth was the prince.
Well, if I ever see Gareth, I bumped into Gareth a couple of months back at the hotel over there. He was doing a talk, and I was speaking to him for a little bit. So if I ever see Gareth now, I'll remind him of that.
Tell him when Arthur rang, we spoke about the two poems, and he said, "Oh, don't tell me, Barry John." And it's a funny thing. A friend of mine, I haven't seen him for years, was a taxi driver in Cardiff, right? And he picked Barry John up one day, and Barry was talking to him. And he said, "Yeah, I drive, all right, but," he said, "am I the most famous man you've had in a taxi?" And my mate said, "No." He said, "Who is that?" He said, "Cliff Morgan." "Oh, that's fair enough for me," he said. Cliff Morgan, remember the Welsh commentator? He said, "Oh, that's fair enough for me, but you're spot on. I'm not as famous as him." and that's the way he is, He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. No, have you got one for us?
Yeah, I'll have a look. I've got a couple here. I can probably have a little go through.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to give us another one while I find one? Sorry, I'm been through here.
Well, as you know, my playing career was cut short. I was 26 when I had to finish.
Yeah.
I had a terrible leg injury, but prior to that, I played Welsh League football. I played for obviously I played for the South Wales Police, and I also played for the British Police. So I was in my prime. I was when they say cut off in your prime. For my sport, I played cricket after, and I refereed as well. But I could play cricket all right. But with my leg. But I had one bump. I only ever had one bump, and it finished me off. It finished me. But my favourite, I saw him down Cardiff. in Indian Park, and he's been a hero of mine since I was young anyway, and it's George Best.
Mm.
As you know, full of demons, probably the most gifted player.
Oh yeah.
And I called it a Belfast son. George was an enigma, of that there's no mistake. A talent so natural, left defenders in his wake. Scything tackles he rode, took them all in his stride. A different class, he wore the green shirt with pride. He lit up stadiums, fans took him to their hearts. With his dark locks and feints, a genius set apart. He made it look easy with the ball at his feet, gracious when winning and the same in defeat. El Beatle fans chanted, he was shrouded in fame, lauded the world over, a superstar he became. Like an unbroken stallion, roaming so wild, a genius flawed, his talents later beguiled. Matt Busby, his mentor, loved him like a son. George duly repaid, a European Cup won. So Matt's dream came true on that famous night. George weaved his magic, such a wonderful sight. Georgie set the bar, of that there's no doubt. He made it look simple, so humble throughout. Live life on the hedge, was a fool to himself. A career cut short, he was something else. Beer, birds, fast cars were Georgie's downfall. Squandering the rest, or so you recall. He was the greatest. He gave so much pleasure. A boy from Belfast, an Irish national treasure. Fans he regaled, their memories are etched. George in full flow, defenders being stretched. An Old Trafford icon, always in our thoughts. Loved the world over, despite all his faults. He was, as you know, he had the demons. The drink was his demon. And we never actually saw his true potential. He could have played for years. In today's era, I reckon George Best in a season would get you 40 goals. He was that good because he never went down. If you look at the old clips of Georgie Best, you could do it like him, kick him to death, scythe him. He never went down. And in today's era now, you get in positions where the referee would blow. He didn't go down, and he'd score goals. Cristiano Ronaldo is the closest to him. And if Cristiano Ronaldo had the mindset of Best, of not going down, he scored 100 goals for Portugal already, which is phenomenal. International goals. I reckon he could put 50 on top of that. Phenomenal.
I always find it quite interesting when they talk about sportsmen and comparisons, and they like the big question, obviously, especially around tennis, who is the greatest? I mean, like Sampras was, pretty incredible to me. I mean, Federer is probably the best to ever pick up the racket. And we always ask the question, don't we, that like people talk about Borg and McEnroe. And it's like, well, yeah, but would they survive in the modern game? Right? But we never really asked the question of, well, would the modern guys survive in your game? So would, especially like someone like Ronaldo, who's incredibly gifted, I'm sure, but like if he was playing back in the 60s and 70s, like would he have been, a George Best, or when they're being kicked and hit the way they were, I'm a rugby and an ice hockey fan, so I think football players fall over if they break an eyelash.
You got it. But you know what I mean. I wrote one about John Charles. John Charles. Look at all the pundits, all the reporters. They watched all footage of him. If you say to a top sports reporter, will you pick me 15 footballers for a world sort of squad? John Charles is in there all the time because he could play centre half, he could play centre forward. He never ever got booked. He never got sent off. He was kicked out of the World Cup in Sweden. They had to kick him out, injure him to because he was that good. I'm not sure they play Hungary, I think it was. He went to Italy, played for Juventus. A god over there, right? You go to Italy and mention John Charles' name, and it's everybody knows him. It's El Gigante. Mention Dennis Law's name, and they spit. You know, two different characters. When he passed away, you know, the Juventus were brilliant with his family, this type of thing. Because and you're going back donkey's years, you know.
Yeah.
And I think best is like that. You know, you mention to anybody, youngsters, perhaps they, George Best, a footballer. George Best, a footballer. No, I don't think they'd be saying that about many of these modern day footballers in 20, 30, 40 years' time. Do you remember Fred Bloggs playing for Arsenal? No, don't remember him.
And they just will be there, won't they? I mean, there'll still be the Ronaldos, there'll still be the Gareth Bales.
But there won't be many, the Messis and people like that, you know what I mean? These blokes stand out. But if you notice, they're all natural players. They're all natural footballers, natural sportsmen. It's like your ice hockey, you know yourself. You know me, I love watching the ice hockey. I think it's so hard, it's unbelievable. But, you know, when they fight in and stuff, I think it's great, you know, because they don't hurt each other, do they? Really have a split lip or a broken nose, like, but what's that like, isn't it? It's like when I like horse racing, I look at the jockeys, you know what I mean? You're riding like 45 mile an hour in a 5 furlong sprint, like, good God alive. It's like driving a race car. It is on a horse, a thoroughbred horse, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable. Grand National jockeys in the Grand National jumping over these fences, you know, the guts, they've got the skill, they've got to steer them, and, you know, this you know, half a ton of flesh, like, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable. The only sport I'm not a big lover of is Formula One racing, because I think it's just been taken over by computers and tactics and this type of stuff. You know what I mean?
It's not very interesting to watch.
No, it's you mean I watch a bit of it, but I think now, and they say, oh, they drive in 200 mile an hour. Well, I've been in a police car doing 170, like, you know, on a main road, like, you know what I mean?
Without use of a computer, yeah.
Yeah, without use of a computer, and you know what I mean, that type of thing. So I don't know what some of these police drivers would be like on a circuit once they get used to it, like, you know what I mean? But these sports, they're at the top of the. You go back to tennis. Look at the equipment in tennis. Look at the bats they use. You know, the tennis rackets in like the 80s compared to the. Look at golf clubs. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They're hitting balls now and like 100 yards further now because of the equipment.
Yeah.
Give them the old hickory stick, like, and see how they get on with that, like. So you mean you look at Tiger Woods, natural talent. You know, when will we see another one like him? I don't know. They said McIlroy was going to be like him, but he's not as consistent as Tiger was in his prime, like. And then McIlroy, as the years go on, he'll drop down. Mickelson comes back now and again in a tournament. He has a good day. He's on form. Brilliant. But they're natural golfers.
Yeah.
Not a lot can do it, but I do like my sport. You do as well, obviously.
Yeah, I do. Is you know, yeah. I mean, I quite like a bit of squash sometimes. That's quite good.
Yeah, squash.
Snooker is great. Love snooker.
Oh, I love my snooker. My snooker.
Oh, there's another one now. You know, Ronnie Sullivan, right?
I've done Ronnie.
Yeah, but
I did Ronnie the other day. You know what I mean? Another one with demons again.
Yeah.
You know,
he's almost caught up with Stephen Hendry now, isn't he?
Oh yeah, and you talk Ronnie about this, but when you look into his background, because when I write about somebody, I have a look at the narrative of him, and I just soak it all in and I spew it out. And when you look at his background, his mother was a madame. His father got sent to prison for murder, and he was only young at the time, and he got all this snooker thing going on. You know what I mean? And when he was winning his first lot of tournaments, his father was in prison, like. Then his mother was sent to prison for tax evasion. So you've got this young man, they're sort of, look, I'm doing all this, and where's my father? Like, he's in the clink, like, you know what I mean? And I think he missed his father. Perhaps if his father would have been with him, Christ, he'd be unbeatable, man. Unbeatable.
Yeah.
The finest player we've ever produced, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think so.
Demons again, see? All a bit flawed there. They're geniuses, but flawed.
Yeah.
Like Colin Henry with the Scottish centre-half, he still has nightmares about Gascoigne. When Gascoigne goes up to him, chips the ball over his head and just strokes it into the net. I think he was in Wembley, I think. And he said, I'm still having nightmares about it, he said. I can't get it out of my head. And he was one of the hardest centre-halves produced.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
that's strange, isn't it? Right. Well, I'll wrap us up. Fishing is a sport, I guess. Uh,
Yes, of course.
but I want to read a little piece I wrote about a fisherman on a Greek island,
What
uh,
about you?
and it was in a place called Sami, which is on the side of Kefalonia, looking out towards the island of Ithaca. And there was an old Greek man there with a net, and it was almost musical what he was doing. He was throwing a net and bringing it in. So, you know me, I use the imaginative titles all the time, and this poem is called "The Fisherman at Sami."
I got you.
And I tried to describe that early morning and what he's doing. So, we'll wrap up with this as we're sort of running out of time now.
We could talk all day, but
We could, but then we wouldn't be back, would we? So, right, "The Fisherman at Sami." The ocean formed a harbour lake, a solder still pit in morning's haze, hugged by rising headland arms, beneath the concrete fluffy clouds. A patient sentinel with net, on a wicker basket thrown for trawl, hurls his lace snare to Ithaca from a tired seawall perch. The sea was rippled like a tankard's innards, a stannic captured fist in landing walls gently waving. The only rise from passing porpoise, lifting like the oily, sweaty knuckles of the bay. The old man removes his shirt, his bones like a skin hanger, and pulls the net in, his right arm like a hungry eel, snatching at the haul, plucking the ocean's scaly fruit from his vaulting lattice web. Dashing lardy skulls on concrete wall, he adds them to his loot. Before he flies the screen once more, to the mattress-covered bay, this one hardly getting a drink before he pulls the netting in. I watched it arch in the flinty wind, but I failed to hear the splash. The old man like a conductor, catching the colours of the ocean from morning leaden skies.
yeah, brilliant. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of the Rick Stein cooking programs when he's abroad. He goes to all he's been to Greece, Italy, he's been all over the world, and he loves his fish, doesn't he?
Mm.
And he always shows a little clip of the fishermen in their boats and on where they fishing and what they catching. And you know what I mean, like I say about that poem there, you shut your eyes and you can visualize this skinny man, no fat on him, this type of thing, but strong arms probably because of what he's been doing for donkey's years. Yeah, cracking, fair play. Well done, bud.
Thank you, buddy. Well, we have run out of time.
Yes, we've gone over a bit, haven't we?
I am sad to say we have run out of time, so we will reconvene shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah. What number is this now, Ross?
I
have no idea.
Number 7, number 8.
Is it? Number 8?
I'll know when I go into the editing suite later.
Oh, you've got a suite, have you?
Well, I've got a chair.
Huh?
I've got a chair and I got a bag of sweets.
It's like me. I haven't got nothing. I haven't. I got a computer and that's about it, I think.
Well, you don't need it. You don't need all the frills.
No, you know the way I work. It's minimal, but I think is the word. Minimalistic. I think that's what we call it. Yeah. But there we are. Anyway, look after yourself.
All right, buddy. Thank you for your time. I will.
Regards to Natalie.
I will. Look after that lovely wife of yours.
She's upstairs, Caroline. I mean, fair play for her. She looks after me well, but
hiding from the boredom of listening to us.
She's had a lot to put up with over the years. Let me tell you that now. 44 years she had. 45 years in November she's had it, and
she would have been out by now.
A detective's wife's life is not a easy one.
No. Next time we'll do the story about when she was ill and you had to cook. We'll do that one.
Oh, God alive. Don't show that to the kids. They're still having nightmares. Yeah.
All right, pal.
I used to tell them, it's because of me you got curly hair. Those burnt sausages. All the best.
Take care, pal. All the best.
Ta-ra, Ross. Ta-ra.
bye.